So here's the final unit of your exam review. This is going to be unit 5. This is about symmetry, scaling, and surface area. The first page is about surface area, and again, surface area is basically the surface and the area. So if you need to find the surface area of a present, you're looking at all the sides of the present. If you're looking at the surface area of, say, this water bottle, then you need to find the surface area of around, bottom, and the top, and you're looking at the area of each of the sides. So the first example that we have is looking at the surface area of this block, and what you need to know in order to calculate surface area is really the formulas to calculate surface area, or just the area by itself. You know that from previous, I guess, videos or lessons, that a square or a rectangle, the area of this is going to be length times width. So whatever the length is times the width, that's the area. And if you look at this one, this is a three-dimensional shape. There's a front side, a back side, a top, bottom, and the two sides. So you have to remember how many sides you have. It's a good idea to break it down and then add them up after, so that you're more organized with your notes. So let's go. The front side of this one has, this one has 6 sides. And the total surface area of this is that, well, I need to figure out what the front is. So I'm going to use F for front. And the area of the front is this 2 by 5. Well, that's not very straight, but 2 by 5, that's 2 times 5. That's equal to 10. Well, the back side of this is exactly the same, so that's going to be 10 as well. You have your two sides at the end. So let's do side 1. So side 1 is going to be 2 for the bottom part. And then the height or the length, the width, that's another 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. And we can know that the other side of this is going to be 4 as well. What else are we do we have to do? That's the top. So the top is from here. We can see that there's 2 shapes here. And the length is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 2 times 5. That's equal to 10. And if we have the top, then obviously we have the bottom as well, so that's 10 as well. So now I just need to total all this stuff up. 10 plus 10 is 20, plus 4 plus 4, that's 18, plus another 2 10s, that's going to be 48. Don't forget your units, because 48 doesn't mean anything until you put 48 centimeter, and since we're talking about area, it's square. That's your answer. This is another rectangular shape, and it's 3 dimensions, so it has 6 sides for any sort of 3-dimensional polygons. And the front side here, the front side is going to be 11 times 4. The length or the height is 11, the width is 4. This is going to equal to 44. If we have the front, we have the back, so that's going to be 44 as well. Let's look at the side of this one. So the side 1 is going to be, side 1 is going to be 6. Here's my 6, and then we have to multiply by the height, which is 11. So 6 times 11 is 66. If we have one side, we have to have the other side, which is 66 as well. Now, what do we have left? We have the top part, which is this part, right? And the dimension is going to be, this is 6 and this is 4, so I need to go 4 times 6 is 24. And if we have a top, we have a bottom, so that's going to be that, like that. We don't even have to calculate it. We know that there's always 2 sides of each. So add all this stuff up. 44 plus 66, that's 110. That's 220 plus 48. Let's say that is 268, and then that's centimeters square. So that's the surface area. That means all the area of all the sides of this is equal to 268 centimeters square. The next one is similar to the previous one. So the number of sides is going to be 6. I'm going to break this down again. The front is going to be 3 times 12. This 12 is for this length, but it can also be for this height as well. Same thing, 36. And then that means my back is also 36. And then my side number 1, let's say for this side, okay, this side is going to be 4 times 12 is 48. And side 2, well, the other side is exactly the same, that's 48. My top here is going to be this length, which is 3 times this length or width, which is 4. So that's going to be 12. And if we have the top, we have the bottom, which is 12 as well. So the total is going to be all these numbers added together. So this is going to be 72, this is going to be 96, this is going to be 24. So the grand finale of this is what? 168 168 plus 24 is 192 centimeter square. Hopefully I did the math correctly. If I didn't, please let me know. The last one, or two left, this one is exactly the same sort of shape. So let's do the front first. My front is going to look like this. So that's 2 times 3 is 6 feet squared. The back is 2 times 3, which is the same thing. Okay, getting the hang of this. My side is going to be, side 1 is 6 times, here's my 6 times this is 2, which is 12 feet square. And side 2, which is on the other side, which is 12 feet square as well. Do I have my top? Top is right here. That is going to be 6 times 3, because my 3 can also be that width as well. So that's 18. And then if I have my top, I have my bottom, which is 18 again. So add all this stuff up. 6 plus 6 is 12. So 3 times 12 is 36. 36, this is also 36. That's 72. What are my dimensions? Feet square. So those are my three-dimensional shapes. Make sure you sort of break down all these sides. If you do all the work in doing all the breakdown, your answer should be correct. Next one, we have a triangle. So area of a triangle, area of triangle is base times height divided by 2. So let's find the area of the triangle first. So that's going to be, my base is whatever is touching. So it'll be 2.3 times 1.4, that's my height, divided by 2. And then I have this times by 2. Oh, let's just multiply this. I need to see if I can get a calculator. Be right back. So 2.3 times 1.4 divided by 2 is 1.61. If I have 1.61 on the front side, then the back one would be also 1.61 meters square. Now, for this triangle, I have a bottom. So this one has a bottom, which is just sitting on the ground. And that's a rectangle. So it's going to be 2.3 times 0.7 gives you one of these decimal places, okay? Gives you 1.61 as well, 1.61. Okay, so do I have all the sides? I have the front and the back and the bottom. What about the sort of the back side right there? So many back side. So this is going to be on the side. Let's just call it that. What are my dimensions? I have 1.4. It's a rectangle times the base here is right here, but it's not given. But we can see that the base is given here, so which is 0.7. So that gives me an answer of 1.4 times 7 is 0.98. And then the last one, I have this big slant right here. That's a big rectangle, so my dimension of the slant is going to be 2.7 times 0.7 gives me the answer of 1.89. So now it looks really messy, but here is what I have to add. That, and that. Do I have 5 sides? I think we have 5 sides here, right? There's this side on the back, the slant has 2 sides, the front and the back, and then the bottom. So that's 5 sides. So the total, I know this is really messy, I guess I can just extend the page. Total of this three-dimensional triangle is going to be 1.61 plus 1.61 plus 1.61 plus 0.98 plus 1.89. Gives you a grand total of 7.7 meters squared. So that's your answer. So that's your surface area. We have more of these ones. So this is another triangular shape. So number of sides, this one we have 5 sides. Let's start with the slant. The slant in this case is my big rectangle here. So that's going to be 8 times 5 is 40. And then I have 2 triangles on the side. Remember, the area of the triangle on one side is going to be 3 times 4, but it's divided by 2 because that's the area of that. So that's going to be 6. And then my other side of the triangle on the other side is going to be 6 as well because it's exactly the same. We have the one that's sort of on the back side. So that back side is going to be, what are my dimensions? I have this height, which is 3. And do I have the bottom? Yeah, I have it. It's same as this one, which is 8, gives me 24. What is it sitting on? This big rectangle that's sitting on. So this is the bottom piece. Bottom piece. This one means the back. So this one is going to be 4 times 8, which is 32. So the total of all these 40 plus 6 plus 6 plus 24 plus 32. I'm just too lazy to do this in my head. I should be doing this mental math. 108 inches square. So that's that one. Moving on to this one. This one has how many sides? One side here for the back triangle, front triangle, 2 slants, and the back side. So that's 5 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's work with the triangles first. So these triangles. The base is 2. So that's 2. What's my height? 4 right here. This is my height is 4. Divide by 2, which is going to be 4 millimeters square. If I have this back triangle, then I can figure out, well, basically it's the same as the front triangle because they're exactly identical. So I don't have to do math anymore. Now, what about my slant? My slant 1 is going to be this rectangle over here. So it looks sort of a diamond shape, but then it's still a rectangle. What are my dimensions? I have 3.5 times, what is my base here? 6 millimeters, and multiply this. So 3.5 times 6 is 21. And slant 2 is exactly the same, so that's going to be 21 as well. And then now my bottom part right here, I'm shading it in. This bottom part is going to be 2 times 6 is 12. So I'm going to add this, and that for the grand total. So there's a lot of work here. So that's going to be 8 plus 21 is 29. 29, 30, 40, 50, 62. 62 millimeters square. That's the total surface area. So let's move on to the next one. This one is a little bit more tricky because it has a cube and a sort of a pyramid. So let's break this down for the bottom. So bottom cube. We're going to find the surface area of that. Since the bottom cube is being sat on by this pyramid, the top of this cube is not going to be exposed, so you don't need to find the surface area. You just need to find the 5 sides. So 5 sides. So there's this side, the back side here, and also the back side, and then the bottom piece. That's 5 sides. Luckily, it's a cube, so they're all the same. So 3 times 3 is equal to 9 times the 5 sides gives me 45 feet square. That's for the area of just the cube. So then for the pyramid, then we're going to do exactly the same thing, but we're going to neglect and forget about the bottom of the pyramid because that's sitting on the square, so we don't need that. We have basically 4 sides of the pyramid, and I think they're exactly the same. So because it's sitting on a cube, so what's my base? My base is 3 because this is 3 here. And then what's my height? Well, it's given to me as 5. So that's going to be 3 times 5 is 15. And I'm going to multiply this by 4 sides. That gives me a total of 60 feet square. So I'm not done yet. I need to add these. That's the total of 105 feet square for this pyramid on a cube. So that's your surface area. Make sure you're able to see all the sides. Make sure you're able to see the calculations. Be thorough with your answers. Make sure you have your unit after with exponent 2. So that's the surface area. And I'm going to continue on with the scaling, and hopefully you continue watching it. Hopefully this has helped you. So see you later. So this is going to be the second part, or the last little bit of the video for Unit 5. And this is going to be your, what is this one called again? The ratio method. And for 5a, this one you have 2 fractions and separated by an equal sign. So you might have learned how to do this through cross multiplication. So you can cross multiply this. 1 times 250 is 250. This is equal to 2x. And this is really how to figure out your unknown. So you can divide by 2 to both sides, because right now in this one you have 2 x's and you want one of them, so you divide by 2. So 250 divided by 2 is 125, and that's your x. So that's one way of figuring this out. Another way of doing this is actually using the scaling method, which is the proportional method. So what that means is that if you look at this, the numerators are sort of related to each other, just like how the denominators are related to each other. So in other words, if you look at the first numerator, 1, and this is equal to sort of 14, how many times is 1, well, how many times do you have to multiply 1 to get into 14? Well, you multiply by 14. So if you multiply the top by 14, you're going to do exactly the same thing as the bottom because this is a proportion. So if you multiply 3.2 by 14, that's going to give you y is equal to 44.8. That's going to be the answer for y. And if you really want to try this out to double check your answer, if you go 14 divided by 44.8, this is what you're going to get. 14 divided by 44.8, I think it's what, 0.3125. And if you double check by punching in 1 divided by 3.2, like the left side, it should equal exactly the same amount. So that means that your proportions are correct. So if you look at letter C, how many times does 1 go into 6.3? Well, you multiply by 6.3. So if you're going to do that, then that bottom z has to be multiplied by 6.3 to get to 24.9. But you don't have a number in the bottom. So how do you get that z? Well, if it takes you 6.3 times to go to the 6.3, well, to multiply by 1, you're going to divide this by 6.3. That means 24.9 divided by 6.3, 6.3, that gives you 3.95. So that actually goes in here. So if you go 3.95 times 6.3, you should get 24.9. So that's what the proportional method is. So in this one, if you use the proportional method, you can always use cross multiplication, but if you want to use the proportional method, how many times does 0.25 go into 6.25? Multiply by what? Well, I don't know how many times. So to figure out how many times, you actually do the opposite, which is divide. So 6.25 divided by 0.25 is 25. That means if you multiply 0.25 by 25, you'll get 6.25. So the top has to be multiplied by 25 as well. So W is equal to 25. So let's look at the next one. Find a missing value in each proportion. So it's exactly the same thing as before, just like having an X there. So how many times does 8 go into 624? I'm going to do that by dividing 624 divided by 8. That gives me 78 times. So that means I need to multiply the 8 by 78 times. 8 times 78 gives you 624. That means the top needs to be multiplied by 78. Well, I think I'm sort of off the screen now. Well, no. And then if you look at letter B, how many times does 1 go into 25.2? So you have to multiply 1 by 25.2. If you do that to the top, you do that to the bottom, times 25.2. So 50 times 25.2 is, oh, I totally punched this. Gives you an answer of 1260. Next one, how many times is 1, or how many times you have to multiply 1 to get to 58? Well, it's multiplied by 58. You've multiplied the top by 58, you multiply the bottom by 58. So 0.6 times 58 is 34.8. So 34.8. There you go. Same thing for here. How many times is 1 go into 15.3? So it's the same thing. You multiply 1 by 15.3. So then you have to multiply something by 15.3. So what's the something multiplied by 15.3 to get you that? Well, I don't know. It's hard to figure out. You can't just throw in random numbers until you get it. So since you're multiplying here, to get the other way, you're dividing. So I'm going to go do 1224 divided by 15.3. That gives me 80 times. So that's 80. And lastly, 1 goes into, oh, I don't know how many times to multiply 1 by 1, but I know how many times 75 goes into 6450. And that's to figure out number of times. I'm going to use this, divide by 75. So that's what I'm going to do. 6450 divided by 75. That gives me 86 times. So that means 86 times the 1. Okay, so if you want to double check your answer, you can go 1 divided by 75. So if I go 1 divided by 75, it is 0.013. This is saying that 1 divided by 75 is 0.013 is equal to 86 divided by 6450. So if I divide 86 by 6450, that's going to be exactly the same amount. That means I'm correct. So moving on to the last one, 1 going to that is times by 5.6. So I'm going to divided by 5.6. So 1.868 divided by 5.6 is 0.3. So that's your proportional method. You can always solve this through the cross multiplication method, but proportional method is, in a way, it's kind of straightforward as well. Moving on to the scaling object, remember the scale factor is equal to the diagram length, that's your diagram, divided by the actual. That's sort of like the formula. So the first thing is when you see the scale is 1 to 25, you're going to change this into a fraction, 1 over 25. This is going to equal to your diagram divided by the actual. So since we're looking at the diagram here, so we're going to plug this in, 1 over 25 is equal to 3.5 divided by actual, and we try to figure out the actual. If we use our proportional method, we can figure this out. 1 times what goes into 3.5? Well, 1 times 3.5. So I'm going to do that same to the bottom, 25 times 3.5. And the answer is 25 times 3.5 is 87.5. So that's 87.5 centimeters is the actual length. And you can always use cross multiplication. That's totally fine as well. Next one, here's the fly. 1 over 1.3 is equal to diagram over actual. So 1 over 1.3 is equal to 30 over something. So I cross multiply, I can use the proportional method. This is going to be multiplied by 30, multiplied by 30. So 1.3 times 30 is, that's it, 39 millimeters is the actual length of the fly. So that's how you do the scaling questions. Next one is, this is just lines of symmetry. Remember, lines of symmetry is just a line that you can draw on your shape that you can sort of fold along the lines. Think about origami. If you have a piece of paper, the crease that you create, if you can fold into 2 equal pieces, that's your line of symmetry. So in a square, we can, I'm not going to be able to draw straight lines, but straight down is one, because if you fold along this line, you can have 2 equal pieces. You can also have this one, and this one. So this one has 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of symmetry, 4 lines of symmetry, and we can calculate the rotation angle by knowing the rotation order. So the rotation order, if we remember, this is the number of times the shape can be rotated to look exactly the same. So if you take this square, we can rotate it 90 degrees, and then 90 degrees, and 90 degrees, and 90 degrees. So for this one, has a rotation order of 4, because you can rotate it 4 times to make it look exactly the same. The rotation angle is, when I was saying 90 degrees, basically it's the angle you have to rotate it to make it look exactly the same. So if you think about this calculator, if you imagine this is a perfect rectangle, rotation order is how many times I can rotate this to make it look like this rectangular shape. So I can't rotate it like this, but I can rotate it like that. So if you think about it, this is once and back again, that's 2 times. And how do you calculate the rotation angle? This is your 360 degrees divided by your rotation order. So if we're looking at this calculator, if you go 360 degrees and divide by 2 rotation orders, well, this gives me 180 degrees, and that makes sense because 180 degrees is basically rotating all the way. So for this square, we can go 360 divided by 4, this gives me 90 degrees. So if I rotate the square 90 degrees, it'll look exactly the same. Going to a rectangle, here are my 2 lines of symmetry. Diagonal lines won't work for a rectangle because the corners won't fold. The line of symmetry is 2, the order is going to be 2, the angle is going to be 360 degrees divided by 2, which is 180, which is just like this calculator. Here is this shape. I think there's only 1 line of symmetry, so the rotation order is going to be 1, and then the rotation angle is 360, because 360 divided by 1 is 360. For this one, I think there's 1 here, 1 there. I don't know if diagonals work. I think that diagonals will work for this one, just like a diamond. So this one would have 4 lines of symmetry, and then you would have a rotation order of 1, 2, 3, 4, and then your angle would be the same thing as your square, which is going to be 90 degrees. Okay, let's move on to these wacky shapes. There's the sun. We have 2 left. So this one has one here at the tip, another one here at the tip, and another one at the tip, another one at the tip. But don't forget, you can actually have it in between the tips as well. So you can have it in between, and in between. So how many lines of symmetry do we have? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So that's lines of symmetry of 8. And then the rotation order, that is going to be, let's see, that's going to be 1, too bad I can't rotate this, there's going to be 1 shape here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we have an 8 rotation order. So the angle of rotation is going to be 360 divided by 8, which is 360 divided by 8 is 45 degrees. So if you rotate this 45 degrees, it'll look exactly the same. Okay? And then the last one, there's a lot here. So I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So there's 24 lines of symmetry. I think that's right. If the rotation order should be 24 as well, I believe, no, it should be actually half of that, because the reason half, because if I have rotation order of 24, that means this little inlet would be here. I don't know if that makes sense, but it will be half of that. And 360 divided by 12 would give you 30 degrees. So that's 30 degrees as your rotation angle. Yeah, this one is a little bit different. It might be best to really cut this shape out and try it, because it's hard to sort of show this on paper. But that concludes, I believe, our unit review, all the way up to unit 5 with your symmetry. Make sure you understand all these questions. Practice and practice and practice. If you want one question that you might see with the proportion is having 2 triangles, similar triangles. So if you have something like, I think we went through this in class, if you have this, how do we figure out this side? And we can always put this in a proportion. Say this is the same side of the same triangle, so we can say that 8 is equal to 3, and the bottom is all the same sides of the triangle, so this is going to be 6 and x, and you solve for x to figure that out. Okay, so that's how you sort of put it into proportion, because this triangle is basically proportional to this one, and you just try using the proportions to figure out the unknown. And I hope that sort of makes sense, but please do practice, and hopefully this review has helped you. So practice it, do some questions, and I'll see you later.